Hi there guys, Says1 here, welcome to my channel. As you can tell rolling by on the screen, I make 3D letter graffiti art. There's some basic principles I need to know to make this kind of drawings, and I would like to teach you them. I'm gonna make a series out of this and make a couple of tutorials. Now the first video I'm gonna talk about, this one, is gonna be about basic perspective. Now if you already know this might be kind of boring to you, so maybe you need to hold on for later videos. But if you want to know the very basic of perspective, this is the video for you. So let's get into it. I'm gonna pull up a picture, this one, and I'm gonna teach you about the basic vocabulary that I'm gonna use during this video. First off, we have a sky and we have a ground. As basically in every scene we're gonna see the same thing. But where the sky meets the ground, we have our horizon. Now that horizon needs to be a little bit lower, something like this. And we're gonna call that line the horizon line. This line is always the height of your eye, of the observer, or in this case, the height of the camera. Now what you're gonna see is that all lines that are straight heading towards the horizon line, they all get together at one point and they vanish off in the distance. Now this point, we call that a vanishing point. Now something else I really need to talk about is the fact that objects are closer to us, like let's say this beam on the ground, and the same beam a little bit further. The further they get away from us or closer to the horizon line, the smaller they become. So the same object will shrink into the distance closer to the horizon line. Another thing that happens, let's say on the right side, this beam and this beam are at a certain distance from one another. But if you take the same beams closer to the horizon line, what you're gonna notice is that they get closer to one another. That is what we call foreshortening. Most people, when they use perspective in their drawings or paintings or whatever, they get a little bit scared of foreshortening. But the kind of work that I do, it's something that's very fun to play around with. Now let's get on to the next part. One-way perspective. This is the first one we're gonna describe, and you already kinda know that. One-way perspective means one vanishing point. As you could see on the picture, the previous picture, we got a vanishing point dead in the middle. That's one-way perspective. One vanishing point, plain simple. Now, as you can already tell, I made this kind of a setup. You got the sky, you got the horizon line, and we got the ground. Now what I want to draw is this cube. So let's start off with just, let's say I'm gonna put my rectangle, my cube somewhere over here. Something like this. It's not gonna look perfect. This is the front side of my cube. Remember, this side. Now I want to put that into perspective and I want to make it vanish to the left side. So I'm gonna pick just simple a vanishing point over here. That's my first vanishing point. Now what that tells us is this side of our cube, the right side of our front, should remain the same size. But that's why we're gonna pick the upper corner, go to the vanishing point, a little bit clearer, from the vanishing point to the lower side. That's it. That's basically, we cut it off. It is in perspective now. There's some things we need to add because we know this side of our cube has become shorter, but this side should become shorter as well. Remember when I taught you about foreshortening? So we're gonna do that. We're gonna make it a little bit shorter. Most of the times, in reality, you're just gonna eyeball it. That's what I'm doing right now. Just figure it out where it should be. Now, of course, that means we're gonna run in this problem, and that's actually if we're gonna put the right side of our cube in, and we're just gonna make the lines parallel to the horizon line, it doesn't look right. We know this side should become smaller. That's when we're gonna need a second vanishing point. That can be over here, can be off the page as well. That's gonna be called a two-way perspective. What that basically means is two vanishing points. As I told before, one-way perspective, one vanishing point, two-way perspective, two vanishing points. I'm gonna show you how we work with that. So again, here we got our cube. Let's say again the front side, but we also want to show, let's say, the right side. So we know that's gonna be over here. Now what we're gonna need is two vanishing points. One vanishing point over here, the first vanishing point, and the second one on the other side of our objective, and that's what we're gonna call second vanishing point. Now what that means, I'm gonna pick another color. It means if we wanna show the front and the right side, we need this corner to stay the same. In this case actually. So we're gonna pick the top side, go to the first vanishing point, take to the bottom side, we go to our second vanishing point over here, go to the same side. This side remains the same. That's actually this side. It should be the same. We go to our second vanishing point. There we go. Now you can see we can cut off our front side and we can take our right side. I'm just gonna exaggerate it a little bit. I'm gonna remove the vanishing point so you can see something like this. Now we're gonna make this side shorter and this side shorter. We're gonna remember for shortening, we're gonna do the same for the front side. It should become shorter as well. So we're gonna cut it off here. Oh, something like this. This like here. And there you got your cube into perspective. I'm gonna remove the layers so you can tell a little bit better. And there you got your cube into perspective. Now it becomes more interesting if you take everything back. Let's say we're gonna put an object somewhere over here. Let's say just below the horizon line. Then something interesting happens. Because we're gonna have, let's say, the front side over here. We're gonna have the right side over here, but we're gonna have a top as well. You're gonna look on top of the cube. So let's say I take my first vanishing point. Again, I'm gonna pick another color just to make it clear for now. Go over here, vanishing point 1. Then we gonna get vanishing point 2. Very basic. And let's say, just for now, I'm gonna show you something because we're gonna run into another problem. So to create the front side, I'm gonna darken it up. That should become clearer. Take it over here. And I'm just gonna draw straight down. We get our vanishing points again to cut off the top side. But now you can tell, since we work below the horizon line, these lines, this one, and this one, they should taper in, something like this. And that means we're gonna need a vanishing point way below. The other side, let's say we do this shape on top. then we know we're gonna see our front side, let's say, over here, our right side over here, and we should see our bottom side over here. And then, of course, again, these sides should taper in. And that means we're gonna need another vanishing point on top. So then you already have, again, another vanishing point, and that is three-way perspective. That means 3 vanishing points or more. To explain three-way perspective, I'm gonna draw just 2 cubes, one above the horizon line and one below the horizon line. So we're gonna pick a vanishing point over here. Let's call it vanishing point 1. One over here, that's vanishing point 2. And for the cube above, we're gonna need a vanishing point on top. That's called vanishing point 3. Okay, so let's say I'm gonna draw this corner of our cube. I'm gonna put the front in, the right, and in this case, the bottom. So first off, to draw in that corner, I'm gonna need some aiding line for my vanishing point 3, let's say over here. Now I'm gonna draw in this corner line, let's say somewhere over here. That's the first corner of our cube. I'm gonna draw the front in, and I go from my first vanishing point to the top side of our cube. Let's say somewhere over here. Do the same for the bottom side. Now we got our front side in, but let's draw in the right side. Go to the bottom of our corner, to the second vanishing point, and from the second vanishing point again to the top. Now to cut off our front side and our right side, we're gonna need our third vanishing point again. So let's say our cube is something like this. We go from the third vanishing point to the lower corner of the front. From our third vanishing point to the right side of our cube. Now only thing that's left is we're gonna need to create the bottom. And that's pretty straightforward. You go from the lower front side of our cube to the second vanishing point. From the lower side of our right side to the first vanishing point. And now I'm gonna draw in just my cube. And that's pretty much it. But you can see now, I'm gonna turn off this layer, that since we got our third vanishing point, these lines, they taper in a bit. And that's more what it actually should look like. Now let's do very quickly one on the lower side. So I'm gonna pick another color for that, just to make it a little bit more obvious. I'm gonna keep the same 2 vanishing points on the horizon line, but let's say I'm gonna draw a cube somewhere over here. I'm gonna take a vanishing point, let's call it vanishing point 4, all the way down here. And I'm gonna center it up so you can see everything I'm doing. I'm first gonna create the corner line. That's the most important one. That's again this one. And let's say somewhere on this right side, somewhere over here. That's our corner. Now, let's say the bottom of my cube should be somewhere over here. I'm gonna get my first vanishing point over here to the top. That should be my, let's say, we're gonna call this front now. And now we're gonna put in the right side, go from the bottom of our cube to the second vanishing point, from the second vanishing point to the top side. Now again, we're gonna need our fourth vanishing point, take the bottom, end off our front side, that should be somewhere over here. from the fourth vanishing point, cut off the right side, should be somewhere over here. The top corner of our right side, go to the first vanishing point, go to the second vanishing point, and cut off the top side. Okay, let's get our cube in. This is pretty basics what it all is about. This three-way perspective. Now, of course, there are some restrictions to this. And what you're gonna notice is, let's say this fourth vanishing point is off the page. Now, I'm working Photoshop, so there's ways around it. But if you work on paper, it's very hard to use vanishing points that are off your paper. I don't imagine you wanna draw on your table just to get your vanishing points right. I already told you, kind of, most of the times you're gonna eyeball your perspectives. Not very often you're gonna have actually clear vanishing points or a clear horizon line. It's just some basic principles you need to know to get more advanced with perspective views. So I just hope you guys like this video. I'm gonna make more of these. I'm gonna get more complex later on, but I just need to get the basics in. So please consider subscribing if you wanna see more. Maybe even leave a like, a dislike if you didn't like it. And a comment or some feedback, always welcome that. So yeah, thank you guys for watching, and maybe in the next one.